presenter is Gary Pudles, and his speech is utilizing Asterisk to build virtual contact solutions.
Wow, that was a great introduction. So the good news is a lot of my friends, the people that I do know here, are here in the room, so that helps. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gary Pudles. I'm the president and CEO of AnswerNet and the president of SA Hosted and Managed Services. AnswerNet owns 28 call centers, inbound, outbound, and electronic in 18 states and 2 provinces. And SA Hosted hosts managed solutions for small and medium-sized businesses and call centers. The title, utilizing Asterisk to build a virtual contact solution, is probably a little bit of a misnomer. So let me start with telling you what I'm hoping to do today. As I've gone through the last 2 days, and I've listened to a lot of presentations, a lot of them are very technical, and I've met a lot of really strong technical people. So I won't insult all of my technical friends here who to try and out-tech anybody. What I want to talk today about is how Asterisk is part of a complete solution for call centers and part of what I call the new world of communications. Many people who are deploying Asterisk are deploying it based on the PBX functionality. They're living inside of the technology. But what happens is when we get called in to deploy Asterisk, we're not thinking about where Asterisk is going to play in the entire enterprise. One of the biggest things that I've learned about Asterisk folks is that sometimes they're so focused on what is one of the greatest things about Asterisk, which is their unified communication, and what they're not focused on is concentrating on how that piece of data and that piece of communication will fit within the enterprise. What I want to do is tell you my story of how I got to Asterisk. Today we have Asterisk in 20 call centers in North America, and we have customers who are also running Asterisk. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story of how we got here, how I got here. Then I want to talk to you about why we chose Asterisk, because I think that was a sort of an important, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because if you're here, you've already made that choice, or you're likely to make that choice, because what we found, it was the best choice to build a platform on. And then finally, we'll talk about questions and answers. So I want to start with a basic understanding about how businesses communicate. So I give a presentation, which I won't give today, called The CRM is Dead. We all know about Salesforce. We all know about all of these CRM programs that popped up over the early 2010s and the late 2000s. And what we were all doing was we had the CRM and everybody was writing into the CRM. Salesforce has an incredibly strong ecosystem around CRM and people developing into Salesforce. Today, the idea of a single data store, the single place that data is going to be stored and recorded, is really not applicable. And as we get called in to find solutions for our clients, it's really important for us to remember that we are part of a much bigger problem in that business, in understanding how that business communicates. So as I took this journey, I started by saying, what is my long-term goal? And my long-term goal, the vision that I have, that I bring to everything that we do, is I believe that in the next 5 years, we as communications experts need to be thinking about any communication path attached to any business process software, and a sharing of data coming across all channels that allow anybody in the business enterprise to communicate and use that data and build it into their business processes. This is a very different concept than having the single data store or the single place where all data is going to be captured, because everybody in the organization needs different things. we're all very comfortable, and we all, you know, if I say Moore's Law, everybody shakes their head. Well, there is a thing that I call Pudles Law. Now, I'm the only one who calls it Pudles Law, okay, because I'm Gary Pudles. And Pudles Law is that, like Moore's Law, where the power of computing doubles every 18 months, the number of ways we are communicating doubles almost at the same rate. When I got into the communications and call center business 19 years ago, we had fax, we had email. In fact, a couple of my call centers shared my AOL, which people in the industry, some of my friends know I still use, much to their chagrin. Don't be a hater. And we had email, fax, voice. Those were pretty much our channels. Today we have Viber, we have Skype, we have WebRTC, we have IoT. We have all of these different ways that we want to communicate. We're in a world in which everybody wants what they want, the way they want it, when they want it, and they want you to remember them from channel to channel to channel. That's how businesses communicate. That's the future of business, and that's the challenge and the problem that we have to solve. That is the challenge as the people that our clients turn to be the experts in communication. We have to solve the ability to seamlessly and without any friction be able to easily communicate, grab data about that customer, that person, that record, and be able to take it from channel to channel. I need to be able to be having a chat with somebody and then be able to then email about that chat, have it all being stored in a database that's accessible. Businesses communicate through business processes. In the world that I see coming in 4 or 5 years, not only will the call center be omnichannel, but the enterprise will be omnichannel. And we will be using our tools to distribute work in the enterprise in the same way that we distribute calls in the call center. What do I mean? So I currently use a software called Excali. My Italian partners gave a great presentation yesterday. I don't even have the cool glasses that they had. But we take faxes, we take email, we take documents. As things come into the organization, as you get into organizations, we now have software that can track things coming in and then distribute it to people across the enterprise as if they're call center agents. So a series of emails can come in and it can be transferred across to whoever has time. If we're doing accounts payable can be brought in, can be scanned, and then distributed inside the organization. The key for us to remember is that if we use the old methods and we don't learn the new methods and we don't start thinking about where we're going, we're going to wind up in a really bad place. So what happens is you get called in, and you get called in to put in a phone system. Corey did a great job earlier today to talk about how he had to think about how all of the users were going to access the data in the campus-based PBX system. That kind of thinking is the difference between a business partner and a technician. Technician comes in and they put in their technology and then they get the heck out of Dodge. What makes Corey unique, what makes Corey special, besides being a great guy, is that he thinks about the users. He thinks a lot about the users. So, as I said earlier, I got in, there was very limited communication. Then we web-enabled. So, I mean, that shows my age, right? When I bought my companies, and for those of you who don't know, most of my business was grown initially by buying other companies. And most of those companies were on old switches. They weren't even digital. They didn't have internet access. So what happens is things start changing. We start having more ways to communicate. VoIP at first wasn't ready for prime time. Today, I don't think there's anybody or any business who doesn't realize that most traffic is being carried by VoIP. But what I don't think a lot of people still realize and I know that the folks here realize, but in the call center business, I will tell you that people are still buying PRIs. They're still buying traditional trunks. They don't realize that telephony today is nothing more than data. It's nothing more than data and data pipes as opposed to buying PRIs. One of the best things we did over the last year was I eliminated every PRI and every direct connect from a phone company and moved everything into IP over the last 24 months in my company. I'm not the first adopter. I'll talk about the future and I'm working for the future, but I don't always want to be the first adopter. The second thing that a lot of us were tied to were these carrier hotels where you would go in, you would run a facility to a carrier hotel, and then you had choices of carriers. Today, the choices are unlimited because of SIP. We had a problem with a carrier today. I said, call the other SIP provider, get a number, and route it to the same IP address, and then we know in 30 seconds if the problem is with the carrier or with our equipment. Those things weren't possible before. The challenges that we had was in the data side. The challenges that we continue to have is in the data side. One of the bigger challenges as we moved over was I didn't want to be in the hardware business anymore. I remember hiring an executive for one of my companies, and he asked me, and it was a software company, a hardware company, he said, are we a hardware company or a software company? And my response to him before we hired him was, we are a hardware company becoming a software company. The next move that I made was to start eliminating the hardware from my business, and we moved everything into the cloud. We moved everything we use Microsoft Azure, we also use AWS. We've been moving everything to the cloud, to big cloud providers, because they have the most redundancy, they have the most staff. Is it necessarily the cheapest way to go? No. And I don't feel the technical pride that I need to touch and feel every server in my organization. So what's happened in the last few years? Number one, bandwidth has improved. Anybody who might remember, in 1995, the founder, I can't remember the name of the company, but they ultimately became part of WorldCom, gets up and talks about how there's going to be a race of bandwidth like you couldn't believe, like the overbuilding of the railroads in the 1800s here in America. And there was a huge overbuilding. Everybody thought, that's what happened in telecom. In telecom, everybody started building bandwidth. And we had an overabundance of bandwidth. And with that came the ability to transfer data, to transfer phone, to transfer all of that easier. And that's where Asterisk becomes such a great tool for us. Asterisk becomes a great tool for us because when I got into the business, a bunch of the vendors that I've been using for 19 years are represented here. We used to have these hardware switches that would take up half a room. Today, what we have is we have nothing but servers, nothing but blades. So the other problem is we are not thinking about our communications and data. While our ability to move telephony and move voice and move traffic around, the key here is the access to the data. So a couple of years ago, one of my vendors end-of-lifed my premise equipment. And when I took a look at what was out there, one of the things that I found was there's two schools of thought. One school of thought is you build proprietary, even if you're using open source technologies, you build proprietary wrappers around open source technologies and then you sell it. Then there was a school of thought which is all data is open. And then I heard about this Jeff Bezos mandate. Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, turned to his team and he said that all teams will expose all data. That teams must communicate through interfaces like APIs. No other form of process will be available, and everything has to be externalized. You have to make sure that everybody has no more private data stores. And he threatened that anybody who didn't build to that methodology got fired. And that's where we, in rolling up Asterisk call centers, need to be thinking about. Do you have the access to the data that will be needed by the business teams to make good business decisions, where you can take the data from the communication channel and tie it to the communication path. So why am I sharing? Why am I going through this process? Because we as technical people, we as technical resources, and I say we as technical people, anybody who knows me is laughing their ass off right now because I couldn't do anything, I struggled back there to get on Wi-Fi. But the reality is that we as technical advisors to our clients need to be giving them the best advice. And the best advice is build your environment so it's open, so that you can interconnect whatever software, whatever business process you need, because today data and storage are very cheap. And with bandwidth and data being very cheap, what we have to recognize is the things that we're building are now part of the bigger organization. One of the biggest changes in my company is that my head of IT is a programmer. For the first time in 19 years in my company, 2 years ago, the head of IT became a programmer instead of somebody who either came out of field service or the data center side of the business. And we did that because today it's all about data. It's all about making everything software, everything delivered in that way. So what did we do? So when my vendor end of life my equipment, I went out and I said, okay, what do I want? I want to start with Asterisk because that's what had become the most popular product in the call center space. Most of the development work that was going on was being done in Asterisk. And what I thought was really cool for me was I didn't want to be a development shop. There's a lot of companies that are in development. I'm not in the development shop. What I did, though, was based on my dream of being able to connect any business process to any communication path. I knew that I was going to have to find something with open API, something that was very communicative. My first stop was London, and I looked at a technology company in London that I looked at bringing to the US. Only when I brushed off the hood, I found out that what their technology was all based on was premise-based stuff, only instead of being in my premise, it was in the phone company's premise. So that didn't work. Then I sat down and we made what we called the Hydra. And the Hydra was the wish list from everybody in the company. So everybody, Corey talked about doing a needs assessment and trying to figure out what people needed. The first step in developing this call center solution, after I decided that Asterisk was going to be at the core, was because of some of the work I do, we knew that queuing and queue control and management was going to be one of the most important things. And I went online to find something, and that's when I met the folks from Italy, from Excali, who have been a part of this environment since 2007, 2006, I think. They've been around for a long time, and they had a solution that had the queue, and it also had Omnichannel layover on top of Asterisk. So all of a sudden, 13.1, or I think that's what it is, that we're built on, allows for this native Omnichannel work to go on. But I didn't want to have to develop the GUI and the interfaces that we needed to make it easy to work in the environment. And when I met these guys, I saw their product and looked at a bunch of other things, but this was the product that we chose. We chose it for two reasons. Number one, I chose it because it had a future. We have right now, we have the main channels: voice, SMS, chat, email, fax. Those are normal channels, text. We have those as a matter of course, but we also have a custom channel. And where that's important is I'm currently working on an initiative. I don't know if you guys know, but the FCC is in the process of launching some open source software, a second version of some open source software for video into the call center. So we're working with the FCC on that project. And the idea here is it is easy and understandable that we have to communicate with our clients any way we can. The first time I saw the Twitter integration, and I did a direct message into the call center via Twitter. I have to admit, I got a little excited, because now I'm cooler than my kids, okay? And being 55 and cooler than your kids is not easy. So we then did the Facebook integrations. We're working on the video integrations. For those of you here in the morning, there's the glasses integration for companies that are technical, where you're looking at something with these glasses on, and the technician in the call center is able to actually see what you're looking at and help you go through the process. The first time I saw that was yesterday, and all I could think about is, if I had to put together, take apart a bomb, it'd be nice to know that the person who's giving the instruction can see what I see. The other thing was that I recognized that we are in a world where every department in the company and in the enterprise that we do business with is going to have their own software that they need integrated. So when you're thinking about call center, when you think about, I know there was a session on Asterisk APIs. I know that the technology we use as an overlay has an API, and we took that because it allows us to bring in other channels. Again, Pudles Law. I know that we're going to ultimately be asked to bring in Skype. We're going to be ultimately asked to bring in WeChat. We are ultimately going to be asked to bring in every single kind of communication. And I needed a partner, I needed an idea for somebody who could help me manage all of that queuing. The next part, which was very, very easy for us, because we ran a bunch of telephone answering services, and as I said, originally most of them weren't connected to the internet. By 2004, we were all full. Every call center seat was connected to the internet. So, the challenge I had was all of my call centers were very small. This was an early time in our business, so I needed a way to share accounts amongst disparate switches. And I did that through a scripting program that we brought over from the UK, and that we've been doing business with since 2004. And what was really cool about that is that I could go into the net. Everybody was putting the data into the same databases. Well, they came up with a product as we were building our stack that has complete APIs to the communication system. So now we have a scripting program that can drive all of the communication. You can actually make a call from the script instead of having to be in. You can send out an email from the script. You can send a text from the script. And what was really nice about both that and Excali is that it also had built-in integrations, easy to use integrations to things like Sugar, things like Salesforce. It's a couple clicks of the button, a little bit of programming, and all of a sudden you now have integrations that for Salesforce and for other businesses, it would take years. One of the beauties of Asterisk is it's got so many APIs today that connect to very solidly used business processes. So as you're thinking about deploying these solutions, it's really important for you to consider what business solutions will the customers that you're servicing, what do they want to attach to? How will they attach to it? How will you hit the API that they need? Because those are going to be the really important questions for us, where we have lots of customers with small amounts. We needed to be able to have systems that were able to integrate easily with a lot of different platforms. We are a big believer in the open source movement. I have to tell you, when I saw the t-shirts, I was very excited because, one of the things I learned early on is there's really no such thing as free software. One way or another, we pay for it. We pay for it in technical time, and we pay for it. But we believed, so we needed a reporting engine, and we pulled in Pentaho because it was an open source reporting engine. So here, all of a sudden, we're building a complete platform. I can pull out any piece. So, one of our models is you can buy any part of the software or license any part of the software, or you can license the whole stack. You can't host the whole stack because we have built a few pieces, but you can host yourself any part of this stack. So here's what we have. We have Asterisk as a base. We have a beautiful Omnichannel GUI that sits on top of it that does a lot of the heavy lifting and the reporting. We have because we do dispatch work, we have an open source dispatch system that allows us to take information in. So I can take an email in and I then dispatch it out using a special dispatch system. I can take an email in and push it into a script and deliver it out through this using the script. And I can report on the whole thing. The only piece we bought that we created was a client portal, because we have a lot of clients, to give them access to their data and to their recordings if we want to. Although I will tell you, for small accounts, we don't give them access. It all starts with Asterisk, and it's all based on open data, open architecture data. Those are really the big challenges that we face and that we need to consider as we're building out the call center. And again, the big challenge for all of us is to make sure that we understand the databases on the systems that we have, and to be able to grab data and allow our business partners to grab data as they need it. So the marketing department may want to know this stuff about what the phone calls are, because they want to know what came in on what number. The technical department may want to know how many calls did I get asking for support, and what were the times that those support calls come in. At the same time, accounting wants to have access to our data, because they need to bill from the system, so they need the data, all of them using different data from the same data stores. So why did we pick Asterisk? What was the reason for staying, going on Asterisk versus free switch? Our rationale was that after looking at it, there was always the question of whether Asterisk was scalable enough, versus free switch. And we just made the decision that it was. That's really, the only negative. When I talk to, the really smart people, the technical people, and I asked them this question, the only real question mark that they had was the scalability. We just, after my research, I just felt that Digium had fixed that problem. And because they had fixed that problem, that was what we were going with. The other thing was, some of the biggest companies in the world were also going to Asterisk. So I knew there would always be a good store of Asterisk programmers, Asterisk knowledge, and there was going to be this lively development in the space. We also decided, and I won't say I decided, because all I did was shake my head, and technical people said blah, 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 and I said, oh yeah, sure, was that it was more stackable. And so far, that's been right. Our ability to stack things up on Asterisk. So I guess if we were looking at these questions, and you're looking at making these determinations, these are, what are the things that you want to consider when spinning up an Asterisk call center an Asterisk-based call center in your business? Okay? What kind of experience do you want to give your customers? We all know that every phone number today in the North American dialing plan can be text-enabled and can receive and send texts. Very simple, can be done in a matter of minutes, and it's all, so do you want to communicate by text? Do you want to communicate by chat? Do you want to communicate, how do you want to communicate to your customers or to your customers' customers? One of the things as telecommunications specialists is that we need to be able to explain to our customers what's possible. What happens all too often is our customers come to us with a set of preconceived notions. The best example I have of that is Procter & Gamble. So we're supporting Procter & Gamble's Internet of Things process. And we had a long conversation. It was actually one of the coolest things ever. I got to go to one Procter and go up to the 11th floor, and you see all the dark wood and pictures of old dead CEOs and stuff, and that was kind of cool. And we And we had this conversation, we were talking about what they were doing, and we started talking about what was possible, how we could take the devices that they were building and bring the notifications into the call center to engage customers. So one of the things that you need to be thinking about while you are talking to the customer is, how are they going to want to engage their customer? And how are they going to want to do it now? And how are they going to want to do it later? Because I don't know how many of you have ever had a situation, you're sitting down with a prospect and you're saying, well, so tell me, are you doing text? Well, we want to do text. We just haven't gotten to it yet. Or it's on our roadmap for the next 12 months. And that was 2 or 3 years ago. So making sure that you can handle in the future any communication path coming in. And that's one of the beauties of where Asterisk is today, is being able to manage all of the different communication paths into one set group of agents or one set group of people. The second thing, and this is something that I never really considered, and I will tell you as a business person more than a technology person, you have to be very careful as a technologist how you communicate this next question, which is, how are you going to manage those channels internally? One of the things that we have learned about omni-channel call centers is that there is a very big difference between there are a lot of rules. There's a lot of stuff in voice communication and voice call centers that is just well known. Voice call centers have been around since 1929, since the 1920s, and we know. Just because we know, we have Erlang theory, we have all of these ways of managing and testing. Text-based communications, which is the next biggest thing, and I think the biggest growing thing, is really going to be managed very differently. When you're in a chat or you're in a text communication with somebody and somebody goes away, how long do you wait? How do you end that conversation without insulting somebody? In the perfect world, you end that conversation, they come back to you, and you're connected to the text of the former conversation. The other big, hairy thing on the horizon, artificial intelligence. What is going to happen with artificial intelligence in the call center? I had a lunch with Daniel, is that his name? Daniel? What was his name? You were talking to a guy from Digium. Danny, from Digium. And we were talking about how AI is going to really affect our call centers. Because routinized tasks, which have historically been done by humans, are going to be able to be learned by machines. Now, how do you balance that? And it's very much like the internet craze of where everybody said, oh, I'm just going to make a website and I won't need customer service. Today I've seen more integrations over the last 90 to 120 days with IBM's Watson. They're basically giving that stuff away and they're connecting it via WebRTC. They're basically giving that connection away because they're trying to compete now with other companies coming into the artificial intelligence space. But the question becomes, one of the things that we're going to have is we're going to have our clients come to us and say, I want the whole thing done by artificial intelligence and I want it driven by a text bot. Okay? They're already starting to ask about it. They're soon going to be telling us. My sense is that there are going to be very aggressive people who are going to go out there and do just what they ask. And you're going to have the same hole that you had in the internet when people said, all my customer service is going to be done by a website. People are social animals. As we continue to move forward with our technologies, we have to remember to build in a place for people. Now, what does that mean? In the call center of tomorrow, what that means is we need to have a way for the agents to jump in and jump out. Certain things will be done by AI. Certain routinized tasks will be done in AI, and you know, some of it's already started where you get on the call with some of the big companies and they use speech to text. They're using, you know, speech-driven IVR, and I don't know about you, but that just makes me nuts. But I'm also a guy who, it's really hard to leave me a voicemail. My cell phone goes to my answering service. They know in my office never to put somebody into my voicemail. But the reality is that they're going to be more and more pushing you to the artificial intelligence, the Alexas of the world, what's the other thing from Amazon? What's that? Echo. Well, no, not Echo, but there's a bunch of new speech to text, text to speech, all those kinds of technologies. There's going to be more and more intelligence built in. And as more intelligence is built in, these bots are going to be able to do more. They're going to be able to deliver more. But we still have to make sure that just like voicemail and IVR, nothing is more frustrating than not being able to get out of the electronic world. As you're thinking about these issues, you want to consider, as each of these electronic channels are being developed, you need to make sure that people can talk to people. Because at the end of the day, we are social animals. If your client's business plan doesn't afford them the people part, be very careful and make sure you get your cash in advance. And the last piece that you have to think about, that you really have to drive, is how is data going to be shared in secure environments? Now, I'm not going to give you a speech on secure data. I'm ill-equipped to even barely talk about it. But I will say that the challenges we just saw with Equifax, okay? If Equifax can get hacked, we're all just putty, right? If Equifax can get hacked, if Yahoo can get hacked, if Google can get hacked, if these guys can get hacked, my little call center can be hacked in about 30 seconds. That being said, we put in all of the processes we have to be PCI, HIPAA compliant, GLB compliant, and all of the other compliance things that you have. But the question you have to ask yourself is, who needs the data? How are you going to do it? And a lot of times we're going to be asked to bring Asterisk into an environment that already exists. So you're going to have to think about, how am I going to give this data to the business partners who need the data in a way that will be truly usable and meaningful, but will not subject us to being able to be hacked. I mean, we all have been in stories where we hear about somebody being able to hack your switch. So being able to make sure that we have access to the program and to the data without being hacked is going to be one of the bigger challenges as we build out a call center in a world of interconnected applications. I guess the punchline of the presentation is that we bring a whole set of knowledge and a whole set of tools to our business partners that they just don't know exist. They don't know that it's available. They don't know what it can do. I still am amazed that not everybody knows that you can text a neighbor. I lost audio. Okay. How are you going to be a business partner to your client, and how is data and communication going to be shared? How are your clients going to want to communicate with you to your call center, and are you going to be ready to handle all of the channels and be able to deliver data that your clients need to run their business? Thank you very much.
I am new to this, and I've been here 2 days listening to many presentations such as yours. And the only critic that I have for all these conferences is that you are all talking about an ideal world. None of you have said what happens when there is no communication. Will I be able to be in business when there is no internet? Where will my data be? How will I access that? And when these cables break, because now we're communicating through cables, and those cables are there no anymore, like in San Juan, Puerto Rico right now. What is going to happen? Where is this data? How is our businesses going to continue being in business in a non-ideal environment?
So let's talk about, well, this is not going to help me. I feel like baseball been very, very good to me. No. All right, so that is a great question and a presentation that I'd be happy to give 100 times. Disaster preparedness in the world of VoIP communication and internet communication. So I'll tell you my special sauce secret number one. All of the companies providing internet to airplanes have land-based facility internet now coming through satellite with almost no latency. The satellite technology has gotten so good. So what we've put in, there's a company called Viasat, which I'm not actually a dealer of, but we use a company called Viasat at all of our locations. It's under $100 a month. I don't worry that it's coming in the same cable as it's coming in from the CLEC or from my PTSN provider or from my cable company, because I know it's always coming in on a different channel, and it doesn't rely on local technology, local support. So you start with that, having a backup internet that is truly able to come out from a different place. Number two, we're talking about your data in the cloud. This is exactly why we were successful. So we just had a little bit of weather come through here in Florida. I wasn't sure if anybody noticed. I have 2 call centers. I have one here by the airport, and I have another one down in Sarasota, Florida. Sarasota, Florida, they evacuated. And they evacuated literally up to 2 blocks away from my office where most of my employees lived. We were able to shut down that office. Our people were in other parts of the United States and Canada. They were taking calls. We didn't miss a single call. And so when the power went out and the lights went out in that facility, we didn't miss a single call. We had people in other parts of the country, it could have been just as easy in other parts of the world, answering on that system with the client scripts, easy breezy, no problem. Losing power at the site. Again, you can shift the data. You need generator. You need generator power, right? So every part, when you're thinking about disaster preparedness, and I give a different presentation, but I'll go really fast. When you want to think about your disaster preparedness plan, you need to think about the people, the power, the internet, and your ability to actually get into the physical facility. Those are the 4 pillars of a really strong DR plan. Because what happens, I can't even, my favorite story, Windstream. You guys know Windstream? Great company. They talked about their disaster preparedness. We had some big floods Sandy came through New York and New Jersey. So Windstream was selling their disaster preparedness. They had their switch on the 25th floor. Their generator was in the basement, which was full of water. So they went out for 3 days. Okay? Water always finds the hole in a bucket. The guy named Pudles knows that. Okay? You always know. Any other questions?
Any questions?
You gave me batteries, but I'm leaving that one alone.
In an environment like this, like we're in a hotel right now, and there was a disaster, and we're using this technology, how would the hotel communicate internally if everything were in the cloud?
Well, so that's another good question. Again, if the hotel if the hotel it really depends on how the hotel's communication process is set up. So if they have success, if they have if they have a private radio network, that's one way. But I'm going to tell you the coolest thing that I've seen. There's a company out there called Ragent, R-A-G-A-N-T. Ragent is now deploying, and my guitar player in my band is the head designer of that. They're now deploying private communication networks via drone. And they're doing it for the NFL, and they're doing it for large concerts and things like that. So what happens is they have a drone array. So on Sundays, they are in every single NFL stadium. The drones come in. They have their own channels that they're licensed from the FCC, and they deliver a communications. So all of the communications going on between the teams are 100% secure, and they're being delivered by drone. And before the TV trucks pull out, the drones are already gone and back in the truck, and they're on their way to the next city. Yeah, it's a great technology. And here, for those of you who are entrepreneurial, they're all engineers. Anybody who's got an entrepreneurial idea around it, believe me, they're looking for people who want to develop, use cases and go out and sell it. Like one of the things we talked about was going to the big festivals that happen over the summer, the big music festivals, and sending drones to add Wi-Fi so that there's more Wi-Fi because many of those festivals are in rural areas. Like, how genius!
Any more questions?
Interesting thing you pointed out was about the artificial intelligence. So I'm thinking now, if you have idea about how it would impact in terms of the business model of the customer service in the future, the artificial intelligence, if it has an impact.
Oh, it has a huge impact. So here's how I see it. And again, it's one of those things where I may be right or I may be wrong, but this is how I see it. First of all, people cost money, and for those of you from the U.S. know that Hillary Clinton ran on a platform to bring the minimum wage to almost double to what it currently is. That's going to happen in the U.S. Wages all over the world are going up. Wages, even in the so-called cheaper countries, the wages are going up, right? So what's going to happen is people are going to introduce artificial intelligence to do two things. Number one, to bring the price down, and number two, to get services better, to give better service. So one of the things we're going to see in the call center is that the AI machines are going to be listening to the conversation, and they're going to give to the agent, this is how it's going to start, suggested responses. Now, as the text-to-speech communication gets better, they'll let the bot, the language, the machine talk to the person. And that's going to continue to get better. So what it's going to mean is that we're going to have less need for human interaction. It's not going to go away, but it's going to be less need. The other thing, from a technology point of view, is that as a technology provider like yourselves, you're going to need to be able to drop the people in to the transaction or the process where humans are needed, and then pull them out without the person feeling any friction in that process. So that's, I think, the biggest way we're going to see it providing good, better answers, and then ultimately replacing. And the other thing is, like IVR, like text, it's just going to make IVR better. It's going to make chat better, automated chat better. It's going to make all of those things better. And as the customer experience gets better through all of those channels, you're going to find that companies are going to be more inclined to use them. I'm being given the hook. So,
do we have any other questions?
Yeah, wait, the same guy who just said, do you have any more questions? That didn't really sound that sincere, dude.
So you're all invited to the happy hour outside at the Trevis, outside by the pool.
Thank you, everybody.